The Devil in Me is one of many games released by Supermassive as a part of the Dark Pictures anthology, and honestly, it's not my favorite. I think there are a lot of good aspects, sure, but there are also a lot of bad aspects. That being said, I still absolutely adore it. As a Supermassive game shill, it's my duty. Something else I adore is The Last of Us, both the games and the TV show adaptation on HBO Max. And ever since Season 1 came out, namely Episode 3, I've been wondering, what other games could work as a TV show? Now, you can kind of see where I'm going with this, so let's just ask the question. What would The Devil in Me look like as a TV show? Bare minimum, I want this season to extend to at least like 9 episodes, preferably an hour or so long each. Maybe more, depending on like the importance of certain storylines, such as like the beginning of the season, the end of the season, blah blah blah. I also want to follow the story of the original game while also making a few changes that would better the story. The goal is to have a TV show that both new and old fans of the Dark Pictures can enjoy. You know, whether you're casual or hardcore. Or otherwise. I'm thinking it would probably be perfect for HBO Max or maybe Amazon Prime, but it would definitely take a lot of inspiration from HBO's Last of Us. The episodes would release on a weekly basis and would be rated TVMA for, let's be honest, a lot of gore and violence. Maybe boobies too, if we're feeling it. Now with all that out of the way, I give you Episode 1. The very first episode starts off with Jeff and Marie Holcomb walking along the sidewalk, excitedly getting ready for the Chicago World Fair. Luckily, there's a hotel they are staying at that is nearby. We would establish to the audience that these two are newlyweds who are quite literally in the honeymoon phase. They love each other, and they love each other pretty deeply. They enter the hotel and are introduced to H.H. Holmes. They sign in as the very first honeymooners of the hotel with an upgraded room at no extra cost. Naturally, they're pretty ecstatic. Holmes sets up the room and takes Jeff and Marie up with him. They follow him closely, skipping the Rathland Suite tutorial, and entering the room that's fit for a king. The couple have a sweet and tender moment with a pillow fight and a gift from a husband to his wife. A beautiful golden necklace. The couple show their love for one another while getting ready to reconvene. Marie goes for a bath, and Jeff goes to get a razor and kit to shave. Marie undresses and relaxes herself while Jeff walks down a winding hallway. He could have sworn the layout was different. And then the floor falls beneath him. Spikes below shine with both fresh crimson and old rust-colored blood. Jeff is barely able to escape, but he must find his wife. Speaking of, Marie is relaxing in the bath when someone walks in. For a second, she thinks it's Jeff. But those aren't Jeff's shoes. That's not Jeff. As soon as she gets up, Holmes slits her throat twice and watches as she bleeds out, dropping her back into the bath. Jeff comes barging in to save his wife, but it is too late. Holmes threatens him and Jeff has no choice but to run the opposite direction. But of course, the walls move, and he is trapped in a room across from his dying wife. She crawls over to him, using the last of her strength to see the man she loves one last time. A single pane of glass is all that separates them. And then, they die. Holmes goes downstairs, placing a golden necklace and a wedding ring on the counter for sale. Another couple walks in. Holmes's murderous streak continues. The intro for the show would then play, a complex mapping of blueprints and music before we cut to a TV and are introduced to our cast through raw footage. We see Kate, played by Jessie Buckley, as she describes how she got a degree in criminal psychology in order to help people. We then see Mark, played by William Jackson Harper, as he enthusiastically talks about his photography studies at UCLA and talks about how he hopes to put those shooting skills to good use. Jamie is up next, played by Denai Guerrera, who talks about how the job has become just that, a job. And frankly, nothing else. Although, someone else recently has interested her. Maybe there's someone out there after all. Erin is played by Simone Ashley and nervously stumbles over her words, talking about how private she is before intentionally being cut off to see Charlie, played by Ewan McGregor, as he fumbles his way through talking about Season 1 and just how amazing it was, before admitting how terrible it was. The TV switches to a scene from Architects of Murder that is, putting it mildly, laughably bad. The camera is off focus at times, and Kate clearly looks at a teleprompter on the side every now and then. But the scene does end with a disturbing fact about H.H. Holmes, and asking a thematic question about whether or not death was enough to stop him from killing again. The Lana crew discusses how the scene went, or more specifically, Jamie's about to shit on it before being interrupted by a phone call. Charlie picks it up and we see him walk into the next room to finish taking the call. Jamie says something about being pissed if they have to work over the weekend. Charlie then walks out and tells them they have to work over the weekend. We then get a small montage of everyone packing their stuff before we cut to them underneath a shady-looking bridge in Chicago. The safest place to be, for sure. A limousine pulls up and everyone packs their stuff up. We get a hint of Kate and Jamie's rivalry, and we ride on. We have a similar conversation to the one in-game on the right here, discussing the situation with Dumet, that for free, he's letting them tour recreations of the murder castle for their show, something that is totally not suspicious. We end up at a lake and wait for the ferry to come by to pick us up. I'm cutting out the whole trekking up the mountain bit just because it serves more purpose in the game with like tutorials and whatnot than it would in a TV show. We make it to the murder castle and everyone settles in. Jamie and Aaron flirt a bit, Mark and Kate do the opposite of flirting for a bit, and then Charlie and Aaron look for some cigarettes. Don't worry, they're not flirting for a bit either. It's time for dinner now, and everyone sits down and sees that Dumet isn't there. In fact, Jamie saw him leave with a little girl earlier. With the unsettling fact that they are alone and tensions rising, Charlie fails to keep control of his temper at the table, insulting everyone around him, showing his callousness, but also his insecurity. He's getting old, has almost no money and no fame, and more importantly, not a single damn cigarette in sight. Everyone just goes to their rooms, planning on getting out as soon as they can. Erin returns to her room with an asthma attack due to her anxiety from the dinner argument. She takes a hit from her inhaler, but accidentally leaves it in her room when she hears noises. She puts on her headphones and uses her directional microphone to pinpoint where the sound is coming from. The lights turn off with only a faint blue glow illuminating the area around her. We have a very tense scene where we hear classical music, babies crying, blood splattering, all completely enveloping the soundscape. Eventually, the headphones are too much for Erin and she takes them off, only to see a bright white room at the end of the hallway. She enters the small room before a dead body appears out of nowhere and the door slams shut behind her. She screams and yells for help before getting an asthma attack. The others run to her aid, trying to break down the door, but as she focuses on the exit, someone sneaks into the room from a secret entryway behind her. She panics more and more, and the figure reaches out with an inhaler in hand. Erin doesn't attack, but does try to take the inhaler. She's too scared to try anything else. The figure grapples her and holds her against the wall. It cuts off a piece of her hair before leaving Erin in a traumatized state. Mark, Charlie, and Kate break through the door, and Jamie runs in front of them and helps her stand up. They all go to her room as the figure looms over them, watching them on a monitor. The episode would then end with Dumet wandering around his workshop, readying his traps and his axe, getting ready for the slaughter. Now it's time for Episode 2. Episode 2 starts with the crew discussing Erin's attack in her room. Charlie and Mark don't really believe Erin, while Jamie and Kate do. Shocker. Charlie and Jamie go to find Dumet, while Kate and Mark pack, while Erin tries her best to calm down in her room. While Charlie and Jamie are out, Charlie confirms his selfishness by stating he is actually just looking for shots. Again. It's clear by now he is more focused on the show than his own employees' and friends' safety. He does this even despite a literal blood trail coming from the dark and desolate hallway. God, I hate Charlie. Charlie and Jamie follow the trail until they hear a little girl's voice coming from a room nearby. They enter it only to find not the groundskeeper tied to a chair, like in the game, but Dumet himself, Joseph Morello. Charlie walks forward and steps on a pressure plate. He's about to step off, but Jamie warns him what'll happen if he does. The man will die. And then he arrives. The killer in the mask. He holds a knife against Charlie's neck, and Charlie isn't sure what to do. He is shown to be willing to put others' safety at risk for his own ambitions. So what will he do at the expense of his own life? Well, before Charlie can make a conscious decision, Dumet cuts a shallow part of his neck and Charlie falls off the plate, the scythe ramming into Dumet's chest, killing him instantly. The lights go out, and when they come back on, Dumet is nowhere to be found. Just splatters of blood on the wall are all that remain. Charlie rubs his hands together, and this, frankly, is a wake-up call for him. Whether it was his fault or not, whether it was his intention or not, no matter what he was going to choose, a man was killed. And Charlie will hold on to that for the rest of his life, however long that may be. Jamie drags Charlie out as we cut to Kate and Mark. We skip the whole magic rock plot line and jump straight into their relationship, as Mark tells the truth about his DP job, and even tries to rekindle his relationship with Kate. But Kate has had enough. They are broken up and will stay broken up, much to Mark's dismay. And then the walls move, creating huge rumbling throughout the hotel. Kate and Mark run outside to see Charlie and Jamie with a wall closing between them. They hold on to it just long enough for Charlie to yell at them to get Aaron and to get the fuck out. But the wall is too strong. It slams shut with Charlie's hand in the way, crushing it and every bone inside it instantly. He eventually is able to slip his hand out of the wall before too long. Charlie and Jamie move on through the hotel, deducing that the man they killed wasn't Dumet, but that the man in the mask was. Moving further into the hotel, they are trapped in a freezer room Eddie Dombrowski style and are separated even more when Charlie falls into a hole, trapping him in some floor below the hotel. Jamie is all alone and is even lured into another room. We cut back to Erin, who reviews the audio recording of her encounter with Dumet earlier. As she listens intently, the door slowly closes, isolating her. As soon as she notices, the wall opens up to reveal a stairway. Erin walks through and eventually finds the Silver Ash Institute. She wanders through it, finding 2 mannequins made of real human parts and a tape recorder detailing Charlie's call to fake Dumet, saying that he wants his team dead. Erin is shocked, appalled, and due to the stress, buying it completely. The room Jamie wanders into has a microphone, a monitor, and a note. The note only has 1 sentence on it. Make her hide, or I will kill her. We cut to Erin as she pockets the tape and the player as Jamie speaks through the speaker attached to the mannequin. Jamie yells for Erin to hide, and just like before with the tape, Erin is gullible and trusting, so she hides in a cupboard as Dumet enters a room. He stares right at where she's hiding, and we cut back to Jamie's point of view as the camera cuts to static. Mark and Kate explore the restaurant filled with mannequins as they hear someone running in. They both cower in fear but are happy to see it's just Jamie as she reunites with them, warning them that Charlie is taken and that Dumet is after Erin, and that they have to find her. But as they do, they are locked out from the lobby and are forced into the bar that leads them to a staircase and a small room with another monitor showing Charlie waking up. He seems to be inside a room with grates along the floor and nozzles on the walls. Charlie wakes up. His hand hurts. He's trapped in a room, and he is totally terrified. The one instance of comfort he is granted is when he spots a pack of cigarettes on the floor. He grabs them, hoping for the best cigarette of his life, but he can't find his lighter. And then the mannequin rises from the floor, lighter in hand. Gas begins to leak through the nozzles. Charlie turns around to see Dumet spying on him through a slit in the door. He shuts it as the lighter flicks, and the room is engulfed in flames. Charlie throws off his jacket, pockets the cigarettes, and opens the slit just long enough for him to get his uninjured hand through. He reaches for the handle before Dumet grabs it and snaps 2 of his fingers, throwing his hand back inside and slamming it shut. Charlie falls to the ground in utter pain. He cries and cries. He tries to move the grate, but it's too hot. He stares up at the ceiling as the room is engulfed in flames. We cut back to Mark and Kate hugging each other as Jamie stares in disbelief. The credits roll as Charlie's screams of agony blare through the monitor. Remember how I said I hated Charlie? Anyway, now we move on to Episode 3. Episode 3 begins with Mark, Jamie, and Kate recovering from Charlie's death. They're all in shock, but don't have time to stand around as a wall opens up for them. They walk through the Columbus Spa before Mark and Jamie are separated from Kate, who is trapped all on her own. Well, not entirely on her own, as Dumet comes by and knocks her out, dragging her into a paper-white room. Erin leaves her hiding place and finds Dumet waiting for her, somehow getting there insanely fast. She runs away and is eventually herded into a paper-white room, straight across from Kate. Mark and Jamie wander through the spa before ending up in a room in front of the 2 chambers with a switch between them. Fans blur, and Kate and Erin claw at their throats. Their rooms are being deprived of oxygen. The switch, however, is attached to some sort of device. Jamie, the tech whiz she is, knows what the lever does. They can only give oxygen to one person, and the other will die. Mark, as usual, cannot make a decision to save his life. Or anyone else's, I guess, so it's all up to Jamie, who, of course, picks between the person she's into and the person she hates. So she picks the person she's into. Erin joins them before Kate dies. Nearly. The door opens miraculously, and for some reason, Kate is let free. Dumet won't let her die. Not just yet, at least. They all help Kate get her breath back, And naturally, Kate is a little angry with Jamie, but that doesn't matter now as they all escape the room back into the hotel. They break the news to Erin that Charlie's dead, but frankly, Erin's glad. She tells them what she heard on the recorder. Charlie wanted them all dead. With that scarring news out of the way, they then lock in and talk about how the hell they're going to get out of there, and decide to make for the lighthouse and hold out until the police can show up. Of course, right on cue, the walls begin to move. They move slowly because they know Dumet is trying to mess with their heads, but with Mark in the back, he falls through a trap door, and it closes before the three can get to him. Mark is seen sliding down an air duct and lands inside of a cage. Noticeably this time, there is no scrap, there is no breaking the air duct. Now he just lands in the cage. Dumet appears out of nowhere in a terrifying jump scare. He stands outside the cell, takes off his glove, and places his hand on the bars, electrocuting himself. He pries his hand away, the skin melting as he slides the glove back on. Mark is pretty disgusted, and it's made clear he is completely trapped as we cut back to Kate and the others. Jamie, Erin, and Kate move through the building together before ending up in a hotel room with Mrs. Morello's body. They find a hidden pathway and go through it to find Dumet's control center. They look around and find files on themselves. Notes were specifically made for Mark to be the ferryman, but before Kate can look at her own file, Jamie calls her over. She has found the controls Dumet uses for the doors and the walls, and has come up with a plan to trap Dumet. Mark refuses to stay trapped in the cell and looks around. He is all alone, and he has to learn to make decisions for himself now. He can't touch the cage because it is electrified, but there is a control panel on the other side of the room. Mark uses his monopod to just barely reach it and flick the power to the cage off. I know that this is kind of a cop-out, but I couldn't think of another way for him to escape, okay? As soon as Mark leaves his cage, he wanders through and finds a gun stash. That's right, a gun stash. You know how Dumet has a rifle in that one ending? Well, he's got a whole damn stash, and it can only be opened with Dumet's DNA. So in a pretty disgusting moment, Mark peels some of the skin off from the electrified cage and places it against the device, opening the gun safe. Mark grabs a shotgun, a few shells, and makes his way outside of the hotel. Jamie goes through with her plan and traps Dumet in between two walls, only for Dumet to show his immense strength by bursting through the wall itself. I personally think it's a bit better than him just, walking through it. Jamie, Kate, and Erin run from Dumet before being split up by those fucking walls once again. Kate ends up in a room, and Jamie ends up in the same room. However, they are split by a glass wall. If you played the game, you know what happens here. You can probably guess what decision Jamie's going to make. Throughout the whole story, Kate and her have been at odds. But now, Jamie has Erin, someone she wants to protect. But she's also grown closer to Kate, someone she's almost killed once. She never wanted to play Dumet's game, and she refuses to start now. Jamie does not press the button, and is crushed by the glass wall, sacrificing herself for Kate. It is now time to move on to episode 4. I'm going to keep this episode short as, honestly, there aren't a lot of character moments in this one, and it's probably my least favorite that I have planned out. It's mostly action and horror stuff, which would be pretty important, but you know what I mean. Episode 4 begins with a disgusting shot of Jamie's completely crushed and mangled body. Blood leaks onto the floor as Erin discovers it in complete shock, but Kate comforts her, saying how sorry she is, but that Jamie gave her life for Kate. That will not be for nothing. The sweet moment has a little time to breathe before Dumet eventually chases them once again, this time all the way to the roof of the hotel, then to the bottom of the hotel, then to the gardens, and the maze, and the farm, before eventually being separated. Throughout this, Mark has the shotgun slung across his back, and he wanders through the pool, junkyard, and a shed full of bodies, in the meantime running into Connie the dog, in a mystery figure. The episode ends on a cliffhanger before it's revealed who he confronts. Now onto my favorite episode I planned out, and the one you probably saw coming. Episode 5 begins with a furnace Charlie was trapped in. He removes the grate he was hiding under and stands tall. Charlie survived. The old boy dusts himself off and walks out of the furnace, but not before grabbing his lighter from the dummy and making sure those cigarettes were still in his pocket. He tries to light one to no avail before moving on. He ends up in Dumet's workshop. He flips on the power that Mark turned off earlier, finding Joseph Morello's body, the man they believed to be Dumet. Whether Charlie was going to step off that plate or not doesn't matter, because right now, Morello is dead, and Charlie's alive. Charlie soon bucks up and moves out, leaving the room via an assembly line. He makes it to the other side to a grinder, and makes his way along the sides before the door opens and Dumet walks in. We have a tense moment as Dumet trashes all the crew's luggage in the grinder, and Charlie's just barely able to hide out of sight of him. Eventually, Dumet turns off the machine and walks away, leaving Charlie to be completely alone. He climbs over the top and makes it outside of the hotel and into the yard. He's just escaped death. Again. And he needs a reprieve. So he pulls out a cigarette and the lighter, and he tries to light the cigarette once again, but the flame won't reach it. Not even close. Charlie eventually gives up on making the lighter work and walks for a while before making it to the curing facility. Now there's a big difference here from the game, as Mark isn't here and Charlie is alone. Dumet walks through, and of course we have another tense segment where Charlie has to stay quiet or else he gets caught. But because I want him to live, Charlie is quiet enough to evade Dumet once again. He explores the curing facility, disgusted and repulsed by all the corpses around him, which definitely isn't symbolic for how he doomed all of his crew to come here. He eventually makes it outside to the trail to the lighthouse. Charlie takes a break and tries to smoke once again. And this time, the lighter actually works. He holds the flame to the cigarette in his mouth, and then he closes the lighter. He takes the cigarette out of his mouth and throws it away into the water below, as he does with the carton and the lighter. Charlie is learning to change. And then we hear a shotgun cock behind him. Mark tells him to stand up. Weary and tired and scared, his finger is on the trigger. Remember what Aaron found in the Silver Ash Institute? That's right. Everyone believes Charlie is in cahoots with the killer. Through a tense conversation, Mark airs his suspicions. Aaron found a tape damning him. They saw him die, and yet here he is. Charlie pokes holes in the theory where he can. You can see the burns and the broken hand and fingers. Why would Dumet do this to his own partner? But Mark doesn't care. Mark is scared, Mark is angry, and Mark is looking for someone to blame. For once, Mark is going to make his own decision. He pulls the trigger. Charlie is shot in the chest with a single pellet entering his throat. Mark leaves, disturbed with himself. The credits roll and all we hear are Charlie's gurgles as he chokes on his own blood and dies. So yeah, quite the deviation from the game. I don't even know what I'll do for B-roll of that, but I'll figure it out. This episode was probably the biggest departure I take with the story, and it's also probably my favorite episode of this season. Well, this part of the season. I'm really proud of this one, but nonetheless, we must move on to the final episode of this adaptation. Episode 6. Episode 6 begins with Kate running in the woods after rolling down the hill. She can barely see where she's going, save from her little makeup mirror. She keeps running before finding a farmhouse. She enters inside and hears Connie wailing, but she also hears footsteps behind her. But Kate, she's brave now. She won't let anything else die. She can't. Not again. Not with her friend, and not with Jamie. Not again. She takes the dog and hides in the corner, trying to keep him quiet. Dumet creeps in and walks around. Connie's growling, and Kate tries to shush him, but to no avail. Dumet kicks open the door and prepares his axe, but Connie bites him, stunning him long enough for Kate to have a window, and so she's able to get away, running off to the lighthouse. We see Mark walking on the path to the lighthouse. He has dropped a shotgun at some point and is clearly traumatized by what he has done. But he soon makes it to the lighthouse, meeting up with Erin and telling her he killed Charlie. Erin doesn't know how to feel. Mark doesn't either. They enter the lighthouse in its cramped, dark hallways. They walk through until they eventually find 2 tape players. The one that Erin found in the Silver Ash, and another one that was the original call. Charlie's words were spliced together to damn him to his own team. And it worked. Mark falls into a chair and is completely silent. Erin tries to shake him and tries to get him to stand up, but he doesn't. All he says is, "I chose to do that." Erin eventually has to go out on her own because Mark is so out of it he can't move, meaning she is the one who turns on the lighthouse and she's the one who finds the boat keys. And as Kate runs up to the lighthouse, she is the one trapped in the same room as Dumet. Kate enters the lighthouse only to find the animatronic of Dumet's mother. She is creeped out, but naturally must carry on. She goes up the stairs to see Mark sitting there, completely still and completely disturbed. She tries to talk to him, asking if he's seen Aaron. Finally, he breaks his silence. I made a mistake. With that, we hear a large bang coming from the upper floor. We rush up, shotgun in hand, and burst into a room to see Dumet pummeling him. Kate whips out her shotgun, Aaron ducks to the ground, and Kate shoots Dumet point blank. He flies back to the wall and slumps to the ground. Aaron stands up with no help from Mark, who's totally out of it, and Kate marches to Dumet's body and shoots it one more time in the head, completely obliterating it, sending chunks, blood, and viscera everywhere. Kate slings the shotgun across her back and says they need to go. No need to risk him getting back up like last time. Aaron agrees, and Mark doesn't even question it. They all sprint out of the lighthouse to head to the docks. A police officer makes his way to the docks, trying to understand why the condemned lighthouse just turned on. He stumbles forth only to see the bodies of Joseph Morello and his daughter. Mark, Aaron, and Kate burst through, causing the police officer to point his gun at them. They beg him for help, but he shuts them up. He tells them to drop the shotgun and to kick it over to them. Kate doesn't want to, but with the gun in her and her friend's face, she doesn't exactly have a choice. She slides the gun over, and as the officer picks it up, a Molotov cocktail is thrown into his boat beside him, lighting it on fire. Kate and Aaron try to warn him, but he doesn't buy it, and within an instant, Dumet appears out of nowhere, chopping off the man's hand and slashing his stomach open with his axe, guts spilling out on the deck. Dumet turns to his victims and marches forth, but as he does, the boat explodes, granting them all time to run away. They find a boat at the end of the dock and sprint towards it. They all hop on, and Aaron turns on the boat. Connie appears out of nowhere, and they're able to save the dog too. Dumet makes his way closer and closer to the boat, but as they start it, they are able to get away into the dead of night. Kate drives as Aaron, Mark, and Connie sit on the boat, finally being given a chance to relax. Until, of course, they aren't. Dumet climbs into the boat and throws Connie off before Aaron tries to fight back, but she is also thrown off of the boat. But luckily that means Aaron and Connie have survived the night. Kate and Mark's fates are still up to be decided, though. Kate and Mark fight the best that they can, but eventually Kate is knocked down, and Mark is held over the back of an axe, ready to have his throat slit. Kate tries to help the best as she can, but ultimately it's up to Mark. And Mark can't make a decision to save his life. He's killed in a brutal fashion, and Kate is appalled. But while Dumet is distracted, she slings the anchor around, impaling Dumet in the chest. The chain rattles into the propellers, and Dumet is yanked into the motors. The water turns red. Kate looks over at Mark's body, but there is no time to mourn as the boat speeds towards a large cliff. Kate jumps off in the nick of time, and Kate has survived the night. We see a driver stumble across the three survivors as they wander in the road and are soon saved by the police. They mourn what's happened and who they've lost. Jamie died protecting someone she thought she hated. Charlie learned restraint and maturity, only to have it taken away from him as he was killed by his own friend. And Mark tried, but in the end, it wasn't enough. All that remains is a poor dog, a timid sound technician, and a traumatized actor. But despite that pain, despite what has happened to them, they get to live another day. Kate and Aaron hug with Connie at their feet as we fade to black. And that is The Devil in Me if it was a TV show. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments. This is the first video essay project writing pitch video I've done, and I hope to do a lot more in the future. But with all that said and done, thank you everybody so much for watching. If you liked the video, like and subscribe, comment, share, do whatever you please. But above all else, remember to make good choices. What? Wait, what? What? I said I wanted the season to have 9 episodes. 9? 9 episodes? What the hell am I going to do for 3 more episodes?